Well, hello, Steve Sandner here, and I'm at the village limits of Vanderbilt, Michigan. It's a very small town. It's a suburb of Gaylord, which is, as we do in Michigan, you say, okay, where do you live in Michigan? Well, I live here, which is in the upper reaches of the mitt, because Michigan is shaped like a mitt. They call it the mitt. So Vanderbilt is up here. Mackinac Bridge is up here. Here you have the thumb of Michigan, which is on the map. So this is a little town that population hovers at around 500 people, sometimes a little less than that. One of the first places in northern Michigan that I visited in the late 60s. And I passed through the town, of course, to go out to the yoga retreat, Song of the Morning, which is actually 9.5 miles east of Vanderbilt. But Vanderbilt is also the gateway to the Pigeon River Forest. And the Pigeon River Forest has tens or hundreds of thousands of acres of wilderness, beautiful wilderness. And it's also a spot for fishing and hunting, and as well as the yoga retreat. Vanderbilt, I believe, is named after the business tycoon Cornelius Vanderbilt, who was around in the late 1800s. And he owned a lot of the land around here, apparently. I don't know. I heard a story about Cornelius Vanderbilt. When there used to be a train line coming through Vanderbilt, the people heard he was going to be on the train, and they wanted to see if he would stop and maybe say hello to the residents of Vanderbilt, Michigan. Well, the story I heard was that the crowd gathered to watch the train go by, and the train did not stop in Vanderbilt. And a couple of observant people saw him sitting in the train, and he was looking down, didn't even look up to look out the window to see the town that was his namesake. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's the story I heard. Vanderbilt was also the home to a private ski club called the Vanderbilt Ski Club, which was formed, I believe, in 1939, and that was the predecessor to the Otsego Ski Club, which had property in closer to Gaylord. So the private ski club, which was called the Vanderbilt Ski Club, was out in the middle of the Pigeon River Forest, and there's some pictures that I found recently of the buildings. And I know that not too long ago I was canoeing on the Pigeon River, and you could go past the ruins because there was a fire that destroyed the old Vanderbilt Club. And you can still see the ruins, I believe, to this day along the Pigeon River. A lot of that land that was out around the Pigeon River Forest was owned by a business tycoon named Don McLouth, and he was the owner of McLouth Steel. And that was a major corporation in Detroit area, especially when the automobile business was in its heyday. And he was a friend of Oliver Black, who founded the yoga retreat. The yoga retreat consists of 800 acres of land that was at one time owned by Don McLouth. Vanderbilt, Michigan has a claim to fame of having the lowest recorded temperature in the state of Michigan, which was in 1934, and it was a crisp 51 degrees below zero Fahrenheit. I know that since I've lived here, we haven't had temperatures quite that cold. We did go down to 30 below zero once, Fahrenheit. I will show some of the old pictures that I've recently found of the town of Vanderbilt. The old pictures are labeled as being taken in 1947. It still hasn't gotten much bigger than that since 1947. In fact, I think the population, since it was incorporated in 1901, I believe, has stayed pretty consistent, around 300 to 500 people. I like living in a small town. I also spend part of the year in Sedona, Arizona, which is not a very big town. It's full of people because of its tourism. But the actual population of Sedona, Arizona is only around 10,000. Vanderbilt was known as a logging town. And when I first came up here, you could see a lot of old tree stumps with very large pine trees that were logged back, I believe, 100 years ago, or maybe a little bit more than 100 years ago. Another thing about Vanderbilt, Michigan is it's known for elk. There's an elk herd that roams near Vanderbilt, Michigan. Maybe once or twice a summer I'll get to see some elk that are near the road. So Vanderbilt, Michigan, an old logging town that now is home to an elk herd and the Pigeon River Forest.